This is where the community is connected. 980 AM WDDO.
The views expressed on this program are not necessarily the views of the Glory 980 AM, the Glory Media Group, LLC, WDDO AM, its staff, management, or advertisers, but are the views and opinions of the participants of the broadcast.
Macon in Middle Georgia. It's time for Village Talks with Tia and LJ. Join them live every Wednesday from 5:30 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. right here on the Glory 107.9 FM, 980 AM WDDO. Log on to the Glory 107.9 FM on Facebook or YouTube to become a part of the conversation. Let's go live into the studio for Village Talks with Tia and LJ.
Is your child struggling with reading, writing, learning loss, and a culturally irrelevant curriculum? Do you want your child to be outstanding at reading and writing and also take pride in their culture? Then you want Reading Revolution Online. Reading Revolution Online is a web-based reading support program. We serve scholars in grades K through 8, and through our innovative approach, we help them build reading confidence and cultural identity development, equipping them for success in school and life. They learn about Black heroes and sheroes through captioned videos, reading selections, and other activities. Reading Revolution Online is an experience for the whole family. Do it for the culture. Go to readingrevolution.org and get your membership today.
Good evening.
Hey.
How y'all doing out there?
What's going on?
Yeah. We are Village Talks. We are Making the Middle Georgia's freshest radio show and Godcast, bringing you conversations centered around culture and community from right here in the 478 and beyond. I am your co-host, LJ, and to the left is the dynamic, amazing, so coordinated, spiritual, culturally competent, wonderful, greatest mother.
Oh. Tia, peace and blessings. Thanks, babe. That was sweet. I appreciate that. Y'all, thank y'all so much for tuning in. I hope y'all are staying cool, drinking water, and minding your business.
For sure. You better drink some water today, I'm telling you.
It's hot. Always.
Drink that soda pop today, well, you're going to be sweating some sugar.
I was just about to say, going to be sweating sugar droplets. Goodness gracious.
Sugar crystals on you. Ain't going to be salt. It's going to be sugar on you.
Right. How you feeling today?
I'm feeling all right. My allergies,
kicking his butt.
Yeah, they've been kicking my butt. I don't know what happened. I went down to Dooley County last week doing some work. And goodness gracious, I don't know. Boy, it's some shrubs and trees and spores.
It stuck to you.
What? It was out there. But I'm making it. I'm here. We almost had a co-host for you today, but I think I'll be all right. Hey, Bishop. Right. What's up, Bishop?
What's going on?
Huh? What? What? No. No, we just got our producers came in, and if you're trying to check in with us right now on Facebook, yeah, we're having an issue with Facebook or something. It's saying something about somebody reported us as having adult nudity or
what?
SEX activity, and we have none of that on the station.
Oh wow!
So that is very weird.
That's
we don't understand it, and we don't like it. That's what's going on. All right, so yeah, but with no further ado, for everyone that's checking in with us right now on the radio, you can't listen to us live right now on YouTube. Normally that would be on Facebook, so hopefully that will be up and running in a minute. But for those of you who are checking in with us on YouTube, you also can listen to us on the radio, and that station is The Glory 107.9 FM, 980 AM WDDO, and that's the same as if you want to go on social media as well. Okay, so we appreciate everyone that's checking in with us via YouTube and via on the radio. If you are listening, please feel free. We're asking you and almost just begging you to give us a call at 478-250-1444. Again, that call-in number is 478-250-1444. And you can join this conversation that we'll be having today. So We look forward to hearing from you. Check in with us, okay?
Yeah, please do. And I'm going ahead and put our YouTube link for the live in the comments on my Facebook page. So y'all make sure y'all go ahead, go to that link from our Facebook page if you are not currently tuned in with us on YouTube Live. So we know Facebook is how a lot of folks check in with us. Queen A. Nicole says, can't believe I got to come to YouTube. Hey, y'all. Hey, thank you so much for joining us, Sister Ashley. We appreciate you, girl. We appreciate you. But yeah, that link for the YouTube is in the chat. Sorry, we are not available on Facebook Live right now. But like LJ said, you can tune in on the radio 107.9 FM 980 AM or go to WDDO.live and you can click the link from there to our YouTube if you so choose. But yeah, so that's what's happening today. So we off to a slight curveball, but we gonna round this thing out still.
It's gonna be all right. You can always come back and check out the show, look at the replay. We'll also be putting out our clips that we normally put out. A lot of people like the clips that we put out of the show. We want you to watch the entire show. We know in this ADD culture we got today, a lot of times folks don't have the attention span.
Right, and that ADD comment might be a little insensitive.
I'm sorry. I mean, this word. I got a little ADD. I'm sorry. This is attention deficit order, but it's okay. I mean, it's not saying anything about anybody in any negative way. And I hope that didn't take or that didn't offend anyone. But that is definitely the culture that we live in
yes,
regards
we are very much instant gratification. We can only stay tuned for a very brief time. It's definitely been studied and researched. So.
Absolutely. Yeah. So yeah, we have a culture of people, and it's not anything necessarily who we're born with. A lot of times people are just programmed just not to be able to even pay attention to things. You know what I mean? And so, we're giving all these short clips and stuff, or a little bit of it, like you said, it's instant gratification, but we gotta have some home cooking. Just stop and let it marinate.
Let it marinate. Let it sit in the fridge for a couple days before you put it on the stove. That's it. That's what I'm talking about. So
that's right.
We appreciate that. We are going to go ahead and get into what's happening in Macon Middle, Georgia. So happening this coming Saturday, August 29th from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. East meets Southwest Town Hall. So join Macon-Bibb County Commissioners Donis Bryant, District 8, and Stanley Stewart, District 3, as they host the East meets Southwest Town Hall meeting. The location will be at Rosa Parks Square, which is across the street from City Hall, and it is an opportunity for residents to hear from local departments and representatives and discuss neighborhood concerns. Featured speakers and representatives include Fire Prevention, Neighborhood Watch, Ryland, Public Works, Macon Water Authority, Code Enforcement, and Macon-Bibb County Sheriff's Office. So please make sure you get out to that. Again, that'll be from 10 to noon this coming Saturday at Rosa Parks Square. Happening on Sunday, September 6th, is the third annual Little Miss 478 pageant. This pageant will be coming to the historic Douglas Theater. The current theme for this year is Rooted in Culture, Crowned with Confidence. It's open to girls ages 0 to 11, 0 to 11 years from Macon and surrounding areas. They'll be celebrating culture, heritage, identity, confidence, and self-esteem. And every contestant will be crowned with a tiara. So make sure you go out and support that event. It'll be happening at 1:30 p.m. at the historic Douglas Theater. And then finally, there is a Ruth Hartley Mosley Memorial Women's Center Community Survey. The Community Foundation of Central Georgia's Community Grant Making and Capacity Building the Central Georgia Coalition of Black Businesses leadership cohort is spearheading a community survey to help inform the future of Ruth Hartley Mosley Women's Memorial Center. The survey asks residents to share what resources matter most to them, how they currently engage with their community, and what programs could better reflect Macon's needs. Okay, the purpose is for community feedback to help guide future programs, resources, and community engagement at the center. So that's what's happening in Macon and Middle Georgia. If you are watching online, you can scan the QR code that's there on the screen. That'll take you to the survey. It'll take maybe about 5 minutes at the most. I completed it. It was very quick, and it was trying to get a lot of information. And so big shout out to Angela, I believe Parker is her last name, who is spearheading that. I met her at the Urban Civics event that took place this past Saturday. And shout out to the chair of the Ruth Hartley Mosley Center, Miss Sylvia McGee, for all of the work that they are doing to keep that space open and accessible for the community. And big shout out to Shanita Smith and Virgil Watkins for the Urban Civics 101. That was a phenomenal training workshop. I think that everyone in our community could definitely use that and benefit from that course. Hopefully they get to do the 201, 301, 401. But I just want to give them a big shout out and a big congratulations. It was a great turnout. And there was so much pertinent information that was shared and passed. So thank you so much for that.
That's right. That was a great event. I heard great things about it. And this is going to be some more coming up soon too, right? Aren't they going to do a part 2 to that?
I believe so. So I'm not sure if it'll just be a 201, because this was a 101. So it was basic information, how the government works, how budgets works, how local government is structured, and things of that nature. There may be potential for like a 201 where it's a bit more in depth and a little bit more zoned in.
Okay.
And they may also just do another 101. So I'm not sure exactly which direction they'll go, but based on the feedback, I'm sure they'll be doing something.
For sure. Shout out to our folks that are still in the chat on YouTube. Commissioner Bryant is in. She says, "Hi, I found you all." Thank you. Please do us a favor and share it. If you're on YouTube, share this link on your Facebook or other social media platforms.
That's right.
To let folks know this is where we are today. If you want to join the live stream, we're right here on YouTube. Okay, so.
Miss Jeanette Goff says hello to you, LJ. Hi, Ms. Goff. Thank you so much for joining us. As always, we appreciate you.
Yes, for sure. We appreciate our village family for finding a way to find us when we lost, because we need you. That's the purpose of having a village family. So we appreciate y'all. We great.
Absolutely.
And so feel free, village family, if you're checking in with us right now on the live stream on YouTube, we need to hear from you today. Today's going to be Tia and I going back and forth. The featured guest today is the village. It is you. So you are our featured guest today. If you have something on your chest, on your mind, something that you've been experiencing, that you see happening in the community, please feel free to give us a call. And that's also for you all that are listening on the radio. That's 478-250-1444. Again, that's 478-250-1444. And do you mind just go ahead and letting folks know what our topic for today is and what our accountability check question is, so we can get this conversation started?
Absolutely. So today's theme is accountability in practice, transparency, access, and community voice. And today's accountability check question, it was on our Village Talk Facebook page, but right now we are asking you, what does accountability look like in practice? What does accountability look like in practice? Big shout out to our engineer producer Tony with putting that up in our chat. He says, what does accountability look like in practice? Y'all, we definitely want to hear from you. Get your thoughts on what does accountability look like. Again, you can give us a call at 478-250-1444. Share your thoughts in the chat. Let me go and check to see if anyone made any responses to that on the Village Talk page. While I'm doing that, LJ, did you want to give your thoughts in reference to that?
Accountability, what it looks like in practice. What it looks like to me is when it's when it doesn't have to be begged for, or asked for. Accountability to me is intentionality. When someone is taking it upon themselves to be accountable for something, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like being self-aware, and being willing to check yourself, because anybody can come and tell you where you're going wrong, or they can feel like you need to do something better, or you didn't do right. But if you don't see it, it don't matter.
That's true.
You know what I'm saying? So, I think it begins with self. I think it begins with know thyself. If you know who you are, you're willing to be self-aware, and then you can be accountable as an individual, which then allows you to be accountable in group settings. And so if you are an elected official or public servant, or if you are a manager at your job, if you are a leader of a church, or if you're just of your family, or friend group, or whatever it is that you're doing in that particular situation. Or even if you're just a part of that situation. It don't even necessarily take for you to be in a leadership position. Accountability, is across the board. It's not all about being a leader per se, because everybody's a leader, but being accountable is where that begins at. So I think, it looks like in practice when you're self-aware and you are dealing in truth, right? Because you can't be accountable if we don't know what truth is. Because how can you measure it?
Right.
Because how do you count something if you don't know? Think 1 + 1 is 3, then are we we're not being accountable because but we're not counting right.
Right.
So yeah.
Right. And I'll just to add to that, because I do think self-awareness is important, but we all have blind spots. So those are the areas where we may be thinking we are doing great, phenomenal, excellent, but in those blind areas, we might be missing something major. And so with that, I think accountability in practice also means having people around you that can be honest and truthful with you as well, who can let you know, hey, you are doing a great job in all of these areas, but this, might take some looking into. So it's accountability to me in practice is also being accountable to others, understanding that you don't have everything figured out. None of us are perfect. We all, have certain struggles and things like that. And so we have to make it a point to, keep people around us who can come to us in love, with truth and honesty and help to better us. So yes, we can introspect, we can self-reflect, we can do all of those things, but we also need people who are in our corner to check those blind spots for us, where we can check the blind spots for them and be honest and upfront as well. So that's what I take. And we have Miss Tina.
That's Auntie Tina.
Auntie Tina, who says hello. Thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate y'all. Definitely, y'all, we want to hear from you because this is really what the conversation is going to be centered around: accountability, transparency. What are those things in practice? How do we measure that? Not only on an individual standpoint, on a person to person, but communally. How do we measure accountability? What does that look like? How do we navigate a space, our communities, our neighborhoods, when there is a huge lack of accountability, where I can't come up to you and say, hey, what's going on? I know you are doing XYZ, and I just have maybe this critique, or, I want to, say maybe this is something you can do, because I feel like what we're seeing a lot of is people taking things so personally and taking everything as an attack, to where people can't ask questions, people can't be, curious. And curiosity is definitely something that is needed in spaces, to stop like this authoritarian kind of nature that a lot of us are having. Like, you can't say anything to me in my household. What I do is my business. And, I made the whole, drink your water and mind your business joke at the beginning. But at the end of the day, all of our businesses are interconnected, because the things that are happening in our community, on an individual level, is not just individuals. It's systems that we are working in and through. And we have to be able to discuss things on a systemic level, because if we're only pointing out individuals, then we'll be pointing a finger at a lot of people. There has to come a point where things are dealt with on a communal, collective level, and that's really where healing begins. Right.
And we got to understand how those things come together too, because the way things are taught now, things are taught from an individualistic level. We're being programmed to think in a lot of different ways, to just think about yourself and be selfish. It's all about materialism, capitalism kind of pushes that narrative as well. As long as you get yours, don't worry about nobody else, and that kind of attitude, right? And so, it gives us those blind spots where we're not able to see how all these different entities or things are working together. Like, as we say, like an ecosystem. We're not able to understand that. And so I think it takes some intentionality again. It takes for us to see that things are bigger than ourselves too, and know that breed success. We're taught a lot of times that being successful is all about individual success, and a lot of times people think that nobody else played a part in what they did. We're not even seeing the work that goes behind the scenes to make things happen for us, or even respecting the work or the things that other people are doing enough to recognize how it plays a part into our success. So, the triangle of culture, all this conversation about accountability, it reminds me of the triangle of culture, right? And I was doing this training, and they were, talking about culture, and how culture, helps us to keep things binding, it keeps us together, right? And and so it is triangle of culture. In the middle of it was respect, right? So it begins with respect, having respect for one another, and then it moves on to trust, right? And us being able to trust one another. Then from that trust, you go to transparency. It means being able to be open with one another and feel comfortable enough to feel open with one another after we've gained that trust. And then we go into being accountable, being able to hold one another and each other accountable, because we first have trusted one another and we are being transparent with each other. So now we're allowed to be accountable, hold each other accountable. But it all rests on respect. It keeps coming back to respect, and we keep building more and more respect for one another. And so I like to say that that's something I think that we also should focus on when we're talking about accountability, or we telling folks what folks need to do, or what they don't need to do, or things like that. Like, it begins with respect. We have to respect one another. And so there's certain ways to have conversations. There's certain ways to carry yourself. There's certain tones that are more, that are helpful to people. If you come screaming at people, sometimes they might not necessarily want to hear that. If you coming at the wrong time, when somebody might have something going on, you're not respectful of what people are going through or what they've been dealing with, because we deal with a lot of trauma. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And even when you talked about that, about systematic, we talk about how systemically, certain groups of people, especially when we talk about like Black folks having experienced a lot of things that Black folks have experienced, and you got other groups of people that have experienced systemic issues or issues as groups, but for us, a lot of times people not necessarily respecting the fact that we did go through all these years of slavery, or that then translated and transferred into Jim Crow. And then now you have situations that are systemic that aren't any labels on. Now there's a denial of any of this stuff even happened. Now what they call it, Black fatigue or whatever.
Right. A term which has been appropriated and now is being used as a pejorative, where people, the original meaning behind words or that phrase, Black fatigue, is the weariness or the fatigue that Black people feel from having to experience and discuss racism and systemic issues.
Right.
Now it's being used as a feeling that other people have about Black people talking about it.
So it's like how they did woke.
Basically, absolutely, yes. So these terms, and even DEI kind of, and
right.
Even though that's not necessarily something that was specific to Black people, because it was supposed to help multiple people, but those terms the definitions get changed by people who basically, when we are questioning the inequities and the injustices that groups of people, marginalized groups, and underserved groups are facing, then it's no, we can't talk about this. We have to change what this means, so that way now this is being looked at as a negative. So the equity that you are fighting for, or the injustices that you are fighting against, are now it's reverse racism. Now in where we have heard people for a long time say racism doesn't exist, America is not a racist society. Now there's anti-white racism. But how is there anti-white racism when you just told us that racism didn't exist? So when it was anti-Black racism and the things that we have experienced for pretty much our duration of the founding of the United States of America, now you're telling us that those things don't matter. But whatever quote unquote inequities and oppressions that white people are experiencing is now something that needs to be brought to the forefront. And you're trying to take back your country. Take it back from who? you know, because I'm not even gonna go into that, but but it definitely begs the question: how are words and terms being used? How are they being defined? And what do people benefit from making those changes to wording and verbiage and things of that nature? We definitely have to understand, the deeper meanings behind the way things are, narratives that are being brought across, especially in this place and time.
Yeah, and I feel like, shout out to Kevin Morgan, 7762. says good evening, hope all is well. You know these YouTube
Right.
YouTube names, they got all kind of stuff going on.
Numbers
Yeah.
at the end,
Numbers
right.
at the end. So shout out to y'all and the numbers. Yeah,
We appreciate y'all.
for sure. But and you're not a number to us. You're real people.
Absolutely.
And we respect you. And just to speak on that, certain people feel like there are double standards and stuff, and I like to bring something up. It's like a hot topic in the community right now. In the House and County. And shout out to all our House and County listeners. Like I think it was like last week, or within the last week or two. I think it was last week. There was a school shooting at Warner Robins High School,
Mm-hmm.
and the young man was 14 years old, and he was locked up for it. But I guess his face was, although he was 14, he was a juvenile. And when folks are underage or juveniles, typically, their faces aren't put on, in the media. Their faces aren't shown or put out there, unless I guess that they're charged as an adult, and then it's up to the discretion of the local authorities. And so, this young brother was 14 years old. He was put out there. His face and everything was put out there all over the media. But then there was another situation that happened in the House and County. I guess it happened in March, but it's just now starting to come in the news, to the news cycle, where there were some young white kids that went to Westfield private school who had sexually assaulted some other, another juvenile, another young person, and it was tragic, and it was, that's bad on both ends
Right.
of what happened to those young people, and so, but their faces weren't published or put in the media, and so people are talking about how there's a double standard, even with that, with how, we're able to put, young black men, I guess, faces out, regardless of what's happened, in their situations, but young white men were treated differently in that situation. But before we talk about that ourselves, it looks as if we have a phone caller.
Hey, caller, thank you so much for joining us. Can we get your name?
Hi, this is Commissioner Bryant. How are you all?
Doing wonderful, Commissioner Bryant. How are you?
I'm great. I wanted to call in on y'all accountability check question, and I've got two things I want to talk about.
Yes, ma'am.
So I think, first of all, accountability should not just be about saying, I'm sorry, or just recognizing
there's something wrong. Yeah.
Healing. It should be some healing behind the accountability. When you being accountable for something, it's not only just about your communication. It's also about repairing what you've done. It's about let's see. So I can't just do something and then people start holding me accountable for it. And then I say, I'm sorry, I'm not going to do it. So accountability determines how you go forward with how you act with some of the same things. Do you get on there? Do you do the same thing 2 weeks later in a different way? It's also healing. To me, it's restoration for people, It has to have some restoration for the people that you've offended or that you're being held accountable for. So, case in point, I'm not going to talk about making bill, but I had to look this up. I remember in November 25, 2015, CNN on YouTube, our president mocked a reporter with disability. Do y'all remember that?
When say that again?
When the president mocked up someone with
disability. Yeah, I do remember that. For sure.
He came back out and said, I'm sorry. And everybody said, oh, well, he's accountable. And then They said, well, he said, I'm sorry, but then about 2 or 3 weeks later, you did something similar.
Right.
So, were you really accountable for that? Or what? So it didn't come with healing for the people that you talked, for the reporter that you talked about. Was it healing? Did you actually, feel that you did something for that reporter when you said that you were accountable for it?
Right. Like, is it just for optics? Are you only apologizing because you are receiving pushback, or are you truly being accountable and, like you said, repairing and not making the same mistakes and showing that you truly are remorseful and whatever action that it is that you took?
Right. Yeah, and that's why I made the statement too, Commissioner Bryant. I feel like accountability and intentionality go hand in hand. You know what I mean? So,
right.
because it begins with you as a person. Like, are you self-aware enough about what you've done and how it impacts everybody and everything else around you? And do you respect that?
Right.
Because, you know what I mean? Because then, you can have enough respect for how it impacted somebody other than you. Because then, now you're not just apologizing because of how it made you look per se, you know what I mean? But you
Right.
apologize
And
because
it's
because
it's
I'm just saying
also
because
taking
you
a
know how it
step
affects
to
other people.
repair.
Right. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So,
And some
a
things
lot
that
of people kind of say the punishment. I'm sorry, I'm getting a feedback on my phone. Some people say, well, if I'm held accountable, then I got to be punished. It doesn't mean punishment, in that sense. It just means, hey, let's communicate this. Let's acknowledge it. Let's realize that, some people may have suffered about something that I said, and let's repair the harm that I've done and be sincere about it.
Absolutely. And even when you talk about punishment, I mean, there are consequences. There are positive and negative consequences, but our actions have reactions. They have consequences. And so I think that whole thing where people are okay with, doing ill or doing bad or whatever the case may be, they're okay with it until they get caught. To me, is like LJ said, that integrity and accountability going hand in hand, because what you will do in the dark, or what you doing in the dark, you should be okay with doing it in the light. And if you aren't, then those are the spaces and the places where you can serve to self-reflect and to hold yourself accountable. Like, why am I okay with doing this, but when people say something about it, now I see where it's wrong? Do I not see that it's wrong unless somebody actually has to tell me about it? And even if that is the case, how do I correct that when it is brought to my attention? And not just in this surface level materialistic, I'm just going to say sorry and then keep doing the same thing now that people forget about it because days, weeks, months, or years have passed. Like, how am I continually holding myself to that?
Right. And why we have y'all? And we have somebody in the chat. It's RSQF5. Yeah, but they said accountability in practice means people don't just explain what they did. They also answer for the results and effects that it has.
That's awesome. That's good.
Absolutely. I'm make a guess to say that's Rasul Salim, maybe.
It might be.
My brother. Shout out to you. All right, but yeah, Commissioner Bryant, why we had you on to talk about something specific? Because this is something that we were going to want to talk about today on the show. Anyway, we're about to get into that. We're going to talk about the taxes, right? Oh, that's Renalda Scott.
Renalda Scott.
Hey, look, sister, my sister.
Our sister. Thanks, Renalda.
Yeah,
we appreciate it.
That was a great answer, too. We appreciate that. But if you can help us out here, Commissioner Bryant. Okay, so there's been a big okay, well, yeah, hey.
To the extent that you can help.
Yeah, so a lot of people are talking about these property taxes. Well, not technically being raised, but I guess the assessment of the properties has raised. So therefore, the property taxes are being raised. So the millage rate is not raising, like the rate of the tax increase is not raising, but the actual value and the amount that people have to pay is going to be more because of the fact that the tax commission, well, not tax, but the board of tax assessors have raised the taxes, the property values. So now people are going to have to pay more on property taxes, which in turn allows the city to collect more money due to the current millage rate, right? And then at the same time, there have been conversations like last week we discussed the sales tax increase, and how we already at 8% on a dollar, and now we are going to be at 9% on a dollar if this most tax was being introduced right now passes. And then we discussed about regressive taxes and how these sales taxes, how they affect just lower income neighborhoods and lower income individuals disproportionately, or affects them more, because of the fact that they have to spend more of their earnings than someone who makes more money based on how they spend their money.
Right.
So we also talked about the state tax exemption on groceries and hoping that that could be implemented to help offset some of that. So long story short, with what's going on with our property taxes, folk been talking about it with the Board of Education, with the school system and all this kind of stuff. Just in a snapshot, how do you feel as a commissioner? What do you feel about how, proposing that our taxes are getting raised and all that kind of stuff, and how it affects people? Like, how do you feel as a commissioner, being someone that's in charge of being one of the deciding votes on if this stuff passes?
Okay, so LJ, I have to do like a politician today. I can't answer that today, only because if I answer it now, I'm kind of letting Paul know letting Peter know what Paul is gonna do. So Paul gonna be ready for me on Friday. So I'm not gonna answer that. But I like the way that Bernardo Chair Scott broke that down about our taxes and the difference in the tax assessors, and she put up there who makes those decisions.
Right.
And I like the way she did about the millage rate. So I would encourage everybody that owns anything and you're concerned about paying higher property taxes, whether the millage rate is up or down, goes up or stays the same or whatever, I would encourage everybody to come out to these public hearings that we're having. They say we have to have 3. So they need to be packed in the house, like the Board of Education was packed, like Byron was packed a few days ago about the data center. If they're concerned, unless they just got money to throw away, then they don't need to come. But for the people that are concerned about all these things going up, I think it's time that they start showing up and let their voices be heard and let us know, meaning us, the government, know we're not pleased with this, and we elected you all, so we need you all to do something about this. And I realize everything in the world is going up, but it's not going up so drastic that we have to say, hey, we can't cut this over here. And I ain't talking about resources that we need. I'm talking about stuff that we really don't need. There's no reason why we have to make our citizens suffer as they're trying to live. People are just surviving.
See, and with that right there, Commissioner, right? So we were going to break down 2 things today. We were going to talk about what it means to be marginalized and what it means to be underserved, right? And so the underserved one, those are to be an underserved. People use these terms a lot, right? We talk about underserved communities or marginalized communities, right? Mm-hmm. And so, Tia, will you break down what an underserved community is?
Absolutely. So an underserved community are populations whose needs are not fully met by existing systems, programs, or services. They may have access to some resources, but those resources are limited, inadequate, or difficult to access due to factors like location, cost, eligibility rules, or lack of culturally responsive support.
All right. And so with that being, we talk about things, people being underserved, right? And so when you explain that about how money is being spent in certain places that it might not necessarily need to be spent, right? And so I don't know if you heard, we talked about the triangle of culture. One of those points of the triangle of culture is transparency and also trust, right? Because we talk about folks, they don't want to vote or they don't want to be involved in certain process because a lot of times people don't even trust that people gonna do the right thing with stuff, right?
Right.
But this transparency thing is important when we to even get to a point of being accountable, right? Because at the end of the day, if I'm not being shown where our money is being spent at, right? It's like me going to a bank and them telling me they ain't gonna give me no bank statement. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is my money.
Right.
You feel what I'm saying? It's the same thing, with us as taxpayers. This is our money that's being spent. And so we're not being given reports on how money and how these things are, how our money is truly being spent and how it's coming back. And so therefore, people don't trust, raising taxes and stuff like that now because we're not even being shown where money is going. And then so when we even talk about underserved populations, so T and I, and we've been in discussions with certain folks that are doing community development projects and stuff like that, right? And so a lot of times in Macon, I've seen this a lot where people are doing work and without any real true data to show why the work is being done.
Right.
You know what I mean? And even like I make a communications page, they put a lot of stuff out. It looks cool or whatever, but it looks more like it's promoting all the beautiful stuff and the good stuff that Macon is doing, which is cool. But we paint a rosy picture on everything. So we're not going to be able to see transformation, for one, because how do we even know who's being underserved if we're not getting real, true, accurate data to know where money is being spent, who's suffering, like who needs the money, which areas need the improvements, so that we're able to prioritize things. So we're not able to prioritize things properly when we're able to deal with people. We got this in crazy poverty rate here in Macon, and it's sad. We got over 25% of people that live in Macon below the poverty line, and then we having 90% of our kids that go to public schools living below the poverty line. So so I just want to say that, like, what do you think? Because I was just, I hope I wasn't doing too much rambling or anything, but I just wanted to get into that part about the underserved part where folks, like the everyday average citizen, and we're tired of just being told our money is going certain places, but you're not even telling us where the last money went to and how it affected our lives. How is it improving our quality of life?
So I would say that, when you say marginalized, so I'm going to say my definition of marginalized would be to keep people from knowing about the money, about keeping them out of decision making, keeping them out of power. A lot of people don't know that they can even, as a whole, as a community, that the money that comes in belongs to the city, not just a person. They think it's a person's money that can be spent. So they don't even know that they can be involved in the process. A lot of people don't know that they can just walk in the city hall. This is not like you walking in their homes. You can walk in the city hall and you can request to talk with some people and do some things. And I know that a lot of people say, well, you got to make an appointment or whatever. But a lot of people don't even know that they can come to those meetings, which they should, because we say it all the time. For the average person that's been kept out of everything and they've been pushed back, and they've been treated as important or insignificant, they just take a step back. But, I try to tell people that closed mouths don't get fed. And meaning, if you're living in a unpopulated, unserved, and area, don't just take it. Show up. Let them know. Hey, let us know that, hey, we don't have this over here. This is going on. But people are not saying that. And it's the people that show up to these meetings and say, hey, and you will see something gets done. And, for me being a commissioner, I can see where the money's going. It ain't going over here. It ain't going over there. It might be going here. But I'm only one vote. And it's just time for people to start saying, hey, we got to take control of this. You cannot let one person have control of everything. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's more of you all than it is of us.
Right.
Absolutely. That's what they need to understand. That, hey, if everybody is coming and everybody's saying, hey, I may have voted for you this time, but I can guarantee you me and these 50,000 ain't voting for you next time. Hey, then they got to fix that, and then that's how they got to do it. But if everybody's saying it's, ain't nobody making no noise, and everybody's saying it's okay, hey, I'm doing a great job.
Right. So silence can be looked at as complicity. So where we're basically, no one is saying no, we don't want this. But I think that and we appreciate you, Commissioner Bryan, for taking the time out to give a call in on the show. Thank you so much for your input and for your perspective on things. I think a couple of things that the conversation kind of has steered me to and made me think about. And again, this takes me back to that Urban Civic 101 class. It's just the hierarchy of Macon-Bibb County. So the hierarchy puts the citizens of Macon-Bibb County ahead or above both the commissioners and the mayor. And so when we look at that hierarchy and understanding who has the power, it's us as citizens, as tax-paying, good Samaritans, citizens of this community. And so
that sounds good to you. But I'm gonna just keep it real. So now we got to keep it real. Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Okay.
Because I got to say this real quick, right? Because we got to get to the real part about what's really going on. I got to say this, right? She brought it back. She did really well when she brought up marginalized, and how when you brought up about how silence is complicity. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of our people are being marginalized. And in Macon, Georgia, there's a big issue with these groups of people. You know, like that, like. They looking out for certain individuals and their cliques and stuff like that. This is a real problem, and people are in fear of losing their jobs a lot of times, you know, or they're afraid of losing their positioning a lot of times, because if they do speak out or if they do say certain things, then they'll lose their jobs or lose their opportunities or whatever. You know what I'm saying? And Macon has a major issue with that. You know, see, and I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off with that, you know, but I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. But I had to get that out because that's a real problem here in this town, like across the board, you know, and we had to get rid of that part because a lot of times folks do want to speak out. But guess what? You've seen it though, Tia, when we go to certain places, a lot of people, they blame the community or they blame the people for problems. A lot of folks are speaking out, but they won't allow them to come to that table or say stuff, or they'll brand them, or you're a troublemaker or whatever, because you're speaking truth.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You know, so our people. Yeah, so we are being marginalized as in our community by these different groups of people who are so-called making decisions for the people, but they only keeping the information and knowledge, for one, in their own little circles. And then when people do try to speak out on it, then they make the bad guy or what have you. And or if they are working for the city, or they're working at the Board of Education, or they're working wherever they're working, they'll lose their job or lose their positioning or lose their potential for an opportunity because they speaking about what they seeing. You know what I'm saying? So I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I did not mean to cut you off. It just struck a nerve because you were speaking good. So you inspired me, T. I'm sorry. T gonna beat me up, y'all.
Okay, so to my point, and all of those things are relevant, and it was really getting to the point of what I was trying to say. So when you see that the hierarchy puts the people of Macon-Bibb County at the top, how does that translate? How do we connect where we are supposed to be as it relates to the transparency, the accountability, the marginalization, and what marginalization is? And I'm just going to read this definition. A group is groups of people who experience systemic discrimination, exclusion, and lack of access to resources, power, and opportunities because of their identities. Marginalization is rooted in historical and ongoing injustices that limit people's ability to fully participate in society. And so for me, basically what I want to say in reference to what we are dealing with from the standpoint of people not participating. When we talk about civic engagement, it directly connects to this trust, this accountability, the respect, and the transparency that LJ was mentioning with the triangle of violence. So when you say, people who want to speak out or dissent against whatever the majority or the popular opinion or the popular narrative is, that get looked at as, you're attacking, you're being hostile, you're complaining. But when we talk about the quality of life that people are actually experiencing, is something completely different. And so people's lived experience should always be more at the forefront than whatever this narrative is that is being pushed and being put in the forefront of on the Macon Bibb County webpage or in little snippets or on timelines and feeds on social media, because those things, while they can be beneficial, we're talking about how are the least of those in our community being served or underserved. And if they are being underserved, what steps are being taken to make sure that those people are seen, heard, and valued? How are we connecting all of the monies that we are spending in Macon Bibb County? We're spending $350 million on an arena. Okay. And so that's supposed to bring in revenue. But what studies have been done to show that that is actually going to be a huge or sustainable amount of money that can truly impact our community, not just economically, but how is that going to change people's lives? Because the amphitheater was supposed to do the same thing. And what information have we received about the amphitheater that shows us that this is moving or steering our community in a positive or in a direction that, okay, we are rebuilding communities, we are investing in communities, we are investing in the people in these communities, not just these buildings or these spaces. How are we investing in the people? And we have yet to see anything that is really showing true transformation. So we have to make sure that we are looking to these marginalized communities, the people that are in the margins, the people who are, living in poverty. When we talk about Alice families, and those are families that, even though they are working and have households that are making money, they still can't make ends meet. And so that's 58% of the population here in Macon Bibb. So it's not just people are lazy and don't want to work and don't want to do what they're supposed to do. It's people who are literally working day and night trying to make sure they are covering all of their bills, who are still struggling. And so we have to deal with those things and make sure that we are not just glossing over the things that impact why people can't civically engage. If this commissioners meeting is at noon, how many people are going to be at work? How many people are going to be able to come to actually put their voice and their time into that? How many people are dealing with working multiple jobs or whatever the case may be? Like, all of these things matter, and they're important when we're talking about people engaging in and letting their voices be heard. Yes, some people can do it if it's, maybe a evening event, but then we talk about that last hearing, it's at 6:01 p.m. on September, I believe, 1st, and then they're going to make the decision at 6:05. So what does that mean? How do we connect that? What does that mean for the people whose voice is going to be heard in 4 minutes before a decision is made? So that's really kind of my point. We have to make sure that every base is being addressed, that root causes are being looked into, because all of these things play a part and play a role. And it's not just Black people who have issues. There are white people in our communities who are also struggling as well. And we have to understand that we can't be divided as a community when there are so many, and there might be disparities. There may be more Black people who are facing some of these disparities, and all of that we can trace back to things like redlining, urban renewal, and things of that nature. But at the end of the day, we have to start figuring out ways to work together and to really start getting some transparency in our local government. And so with that, you can go ahead, Commissioner.
I'm listening. But I was just gonna say, I want to change the subject for just a minute, because I know y'all are getting ready to get off. When we talk about this accountability, and then you said there's just as many white people that are struggling as Black people are struggling, and maybe because when Black people struggle, they make it a crime. But this is also what I want to say, because it's not about Black and white. I need accountability to be across the board for everybody. And I say that to say that I just was looking at Facebook before I got on here with you all, and I saw 3 young men in Peach County did something to another little boy.
Yeah, LJ was just talking about that.
And they didn't want to put their faces, because they were minors, on TV. They didn't want to put their faces because the judge said they didn't want them. Okay, let's make accountable, because what you did, you almost paralyzed this other child. So in a sense, whether you shot him or not, what you did was one of the worst crimes that we call it a deadly sin. And for them to get a bond at $75,000, and this other young man, it's alleged that they both had guns. It's alleged, like I said. But for him not to get the same treatment, and his face was plastered on there. And what happens if once they go to court, they find out that he's found not guilty, and you plastered his face all over the news and social media and everything. So when they talk about accountability, it needs to be the same for everyone.
Absolutely. I'm in 100% agreement. And then we have Kevin Morgan in the comments. He says, this is not on you, Commissioner Bryant, but 12 noon is not the appropriate time to hold these meetings. He also says, well, actually after 30 years, the new arena will actually cost over $750 million in 30 years with interest. Okay. So, and so those are the things that the conversation. So when we talk about increasing, the taxes and all of these things, and, this most tax, but what actually, like you said, what programs, what resources are currently being used, what studies are being done to show that they are having an actual impact on the communities, what things can be removed, what things are not being useful. So, and how can we, before we talk about increasing or raising someone's taxes, how can we actually move to something that is actually more sustainable or more feasible for communities who are already struggling? I think those are some important questions that we have to figure out, and to the point of just the timing of everything and wanting people to civically engage. I think that's something that needs to be discussed. Elder, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. I mean, you go back to the same thing I was saying. Like, we got these little cliques of folks who want to keep information away from everyday, people, so they can do what they want to do. Folks want to be authoritarians. They want to be the kings of stuff, or just have their little groups making all these different decisions. Then, you look down on everybody else, and then you don't care about what's happening in those communities.
And you make it harder for community members to actually engage in the process. And that discourages people from wanting to participate in the process.
And you blame them same people and say, y'all don't get out and vote. You don't want to do this because you don't get out. But, you're not showing me how all these things are connecting to my life. Like, look, I went out last time and I voted, and look what y'all did. Or, look, even if I do vote, or even if we do put somebody in there that say they got my back, or they look like us or whatever, look, they're going to do the same thing that the last people did. You know what I'm saying? So, like, if it ain't no transparency, like, if you're not showing, for instance, I know what would be a great thing to have been done. When Kevin Morgan, he brought up about the new arena, right? So, if you want to make this new arena make sense, in regards to the money that's being spent and how it's going to benefit us as a community, bring in the numbers of the amphitheater. Bring the numbers up. Show us exactly how much money was generated. Not these just telling us that the amphitheater drew $20 million and all that.
Sold out this concert.
Yeah, and it made $20 million for the community and all. Okay, if it did that, show us how. Like, show us detailed reports of this data and show us how this money was made. Because we've showed on a couple other shows with the amphitheater how most of the money that's generated that gives it put in the net positive comes from the rent that's collected from the Macon Mall. So technically, the $2.5 million that we pay back for the bond every year is not being made by the amphitheater on its own, right? So long story short, we need to be shown these numbers from, like, because I guarantee we know for a fact that if this stuff was making money and it was doing well, we'll be shown that. We know for a fact. So it must not be doing that well. And if it's not, show us why and how so we can fix it. But before we build a whole brand new amphitheater, a new arena that's 5, 6, 7 times the cost of the old amphitheater, show us how it's going to benefit our taxpayers. Because that $350 million, or Kevin Morgan said $750 million in 3 years with interest, right? In 30 years, right? And so these numbers, if him as a community member is showing that, why can't we have an elected official? Because right now, I guarantee you, if he put that number somewhere and he wrong, I guarantee you the mayor or somebody else going to argue you down and say you're wrong, might get called a name or something. I'm just keeping it real.
And that's why transparency is important, because we shouldn't have to put the information out and then be called, whatever name you want to call somebody for getting it wrong, when this is the information that should have been at the forefront before a decision was made to follow through, break ground, or whatever the case may be. These are things that happen, and most most cities and most spaces, they do studies, they do feasibility studies, they do return on investments and all of those things, and get people to actually understand and comprehend what this is supposed to do and how it's going to do it. And there is through the way reports and information passed on. So we've been talking for a long time, y'all. We're gonna try again next week. So thank y'all so much for joining us on YouTube. We appreciate y'all. If you were on the radio, peace.
Peace.
You've been listening to Village Talks with Tia and LJ. Join them live every Wednesday from 5:30 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. right here on the Glory 107.9 FM, 980 AM, WDDO.
The views expressed on this program are not necessarily the views of the Glory 980 AM, the Glory Media Group, LLC, WDDO AM, its staff, management, or advertisers, but are the views and opinions of the participants of the broadcast.